Please welcome Una Stevenson.
The year is 1986. 7 siblings, all under 10 years old, are scattered across parts of the country. Different cities, different homes, different strangers assigned to care for them. The youngest is just 3 months old. The oldest, barely 9. None of them old enough to understand why they were separated or what it means to begin life as a statistic. Now, it's 1989. Those same 7 siblings are brought back together and are sitting in a living room that feels unfamiliar but safe, looking at faces they recognize but barely remember. Confused but hopeful, trying to figure out where they belong. 2 grandparents, older, tired, but determined, have opened their door and decided we will raise them, all 7. This sounds like a scene from a movie, that moment when everything gets fixed and they all live happily ever after. But this wasn't a movie. This was my beginning. I was that 3-month-old. And beginnings like mine don't hand you a clean slate. They hand you assumptions, because children who come from fractured starts are often met with something quieter than judgment, but just as powerful: underestimation. Before you've spoken a word, the world has already begun drafting your limits. It offers statistics instead of questions, probabilities instead of possibilities. Many are expected to struggle long before they're expected to succeed. According to a study by the National Foster Youth Institute, less than 3% of children who spend time in foster care will ever graduate college. Without realizing it, those early fractures, those small, silent breaks, start forming the outline of who you believe you're allowed to become. But here's the thing. You don't have to have come from a fractured start to know what that feels like. You just have to be human. Most of us, if we're honest, have had a moment where someone else's assumptions tried to limit us. Underestimation rarely arrives loud. It seeps in quietly, entering the cracks of who you think you are until the voice of someone else's assumptions starts sounding like your own. And when that happens, the cracks don't stay on the surface. They run deep into confidence, choices, and potential. Not because you're weak, but because you were never taught that cracks can hold power. One of my earliest cracks showed up in 1st grade. We used to race through holy cards, these thick math flashcards with rows of holes punched into them, and you'd slide a piece of paper underneath and write your answer through the hole. Now, I would fly through addition faster than anybody in the class, until the day we flipped them over and subtraction stared back. I froze. Everybody else kept going. And when I looked up, that tiny smirk on my teacher's face felt like confirmation. See, you're not as smart as you thought. That moment, that tiny moment, became a crack I carried far longer than I care to admit. But as I grew, I did something without realizing it. I started to build from the very places I once tried to hide. That pattern followed me into my professional life. I entered rooms where I was the youngest, the only woman, the only person of color, and people underestimated my capability long before they witnessed my excellence. But here's what I've learned. When people underestimate you, they give you a strange sort of freedom. The freedom to grow outside of their line of sight, to build quietly, to rise steadily, to become undeniable. When someone dismisses you, assuming they already know your limits, they offer you a freedom and their expectations lose their grip. and you find yourself freer, untethered, and rising in ways that no one predicted. Underestimation can break you. But sometimes that breaking reveals what's been hidden inside of you all along. That truth became clearer to me when I discovered an ancient Japanese art form called Kintsugi, meaning golden repair. In this practice, you take broken pottery and you put the pieces back together by refitting them with gold, making the piece whole again, but more beautiful and more valuable because it was broken. That image of beautifully repurposed art and function taught me something that I didn't have words for as a child. Brokenness isn't the end of the story. It's where the building begins. Ernest Hemingway once wrote, "The world breaks everyone, and afterwards some are strong at the broken places." He wasn't describing damage. He was describing a way to find strength from the great breaks formed by others. Now, I don't want to leave you with just a metaphor. I want to leave you with something you can use, a way to turn underestimation and the cracks that form from it into a tool instead of a wound. It's a 4-step practice I call G.I.F.T. G-I-F-T, because underestimation is exactly that, a gift. Now, it may be one you didn't ask for, but it is one you can use, and here's how. G, gather the pieces. Name what's cracked without shame or denial. Me standing here, sharing what once broke me, is gathering my pieces in practice. I, identify the overlooked. Often the parts of that people misunderstand are the qualities and hidden birthplace of strength. When I learned to see the parts of myself that others underestimated, depth, pattern recognition, resilience, I realized they were strengths I could build from. F, forge micro wins. Small, steady victories rebuild belief from the inside out. Every academic success, every career milestone, every degree was a micro win forged from the very places I once thought were limitations. Finally, T, turn it into service. Your strength multiplies when it lifts others up. In my work, in how I lead, in how I parent, my cracks inform how I help others find their gold. Your cracks are not disqualifying. They are directional. They point to the places where the gold belongs, and they reveal the beauty of who you are becoming. So if you've ever been underestimated by others or by yourself, look again. There's a gift inside of it. Discover it, shape it, and let it shine through the places you once tried to hide. Because brokenness isn't the end. It's where the beauty of becoming begins. Thank you.